Well, Jack is a player who is on our overall leaderboard. We don't have him on our particular leaderboard today because what we did is we covered the top 10 players who are in attendance here. Again, Nelson, Smith, Van Meter, Tenjum, Hoogland, Fabiano, Anderson, Shrout, Briska, and Nolan. But Fogle's right underneath those players. Nolan is in 23rd place. You'll see Fogle is in 27th right now. And he's on your right. He's playing Mono Blue Devotion. Again, a deck that Sam Black is obviously known for, along with Team Star City Games. But of course, we saw last weekend Tyler Wilkerson almost back-to-back, but his win did happen with Mono Blue.
And we saw Jack earlier on camera take down a Mono Red aggressive deck earlier in the tournament. So again, 5-0 and off to an excellent start.
Fogle going to start off with an excellent start here as well. Cloudfin Raptor is where we're going to begin. You see Williams is going to play a Temple of Silence, and part of the reason for that, a bit of a free roll there on the Scrylands. He's not Esper, he is blue-white. Fogle's going to draw an island for the turn.
Blue-white was kind of the talk of the town for a little while there, leading up to the Invitational in Las Vegas last year, and off of Huey Jensen's second place finish at Grand Prix Dallas, rather.
Yep.
But it's fallen off the radar a little bit, but still prevalent in these tournaments.
It's funny how quickly decks come and go nowadays, too, where, again, as you mentioned, blue-white after Grand Prix Dallas was huge coming in the Invitational. And even on day one of the Invitational, where Jensen, Duke, and Turtonwell did not have a great tournament, they all switched kind of off of it immediately and just went to something else. And we haven't really seen blue-white dominate since then. You see Fogle going to play Nightfell Spectre. Evolve the Cloudfin Raptor is going to get across for 4 points of damage here. Last Breath going to take the Raptor out of the sky, which means that Williams is okay with the Nightfell Spectre being in play. Could be a little bit risky there.
Yeah, or potentially setting up a Supreme Verdict as well.
So Fogle's going to gain a little bit of life now. He's going to go up to 24 from the Last Breath, but he's dealing his damage here as a Hollow Fountain's going to come into play, tapped past the turn back. Fogle will take a draw step. He's looking for a Thassa, maybe a Bident, maybe a Jace, but he's going to start by attacking here. There's another copy of Last Breath to take care of the Spectre. So bye-bye Spectre. Fogle will go up to 28, but that's not what he cares about. He wants to deal as much damage as he can. Now Fogle's going to follow up here with a Jace. He's going to take this down. So there's a Bident, a Judge's Familiar, and a Judge's Familiar. So a couple creatures in a Bident, and I think predictably going to take the weapon here.
Although it's not that clear-cut to me, as if Mike finds an answer to this Tidebinder Mage, then his Biden might not have a lot of support to get going, but Biden definitely the more powerful of the cards at this stage of things.
You see Mike's hand right now is double dissolved, Attention Sphere, Sphinx of Revelation, and 2 copies of Hallowed Fountain, so he actually does have the Biden covered, and you'll see how he wants to play this turn. Maybe try to mask the fact that he has a counterspell in his hand, or he does have an answer for the Biden.
Very strong opening from Jack here, too. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4 is what you want to do here.
Oh, yeah. He's curving out beautifully. He's actually able to draw some cards to boot with Jace. Might see a couple more come to his hand here as well. But now he's got to worry about counter magic and try to figure out what deck he's playing against. Because right now, if you're a Fogle, you're probably assuming you're playing against an Esper deck, right?
Well, the Last Breaths are a bit of a giveaway. They're pretty rare to see an Esperless. Occasionally you see one, but they're definitely very frequent in multiples in blue-white lists. Because they don't have the option of playing Hero's Downfall or Far Away or other removal spells.
Biden going to get hit by a Dissolve. Fogle going to attack with the Tidebinder Mage, deal 2 more over to Williams, then just take his Jace up so he can use it later. As you see, Williams has drawn a Jace of his own. And now Detention Sphere is going to come in. It's going to take care of Jace. So now Fogle's not going to get any more cards off of that particular copy of the Architect of Thought. We'll see if he does draw another one as he untaps. And we see we're going to get everything cleared up, so we're good to go. Cyclonic Rift there in Fogle's hand right now, along with an Island and a mystery card. Might be a counterspell in Fogle's hand. Let's take a look.
Another island.
Yeah, I think it is another island. I want to take a look at Jack's list. See exactly what the contents are this go around for him. His spells, he's got two Cyclonic Rifts, 1 Rapid Hybridization, 2 Jace, 2 Biden, and a main deck Domestication. You see he's going to burn one of those Rifts to get his Jace back. Draw a couple of cards here, Judge's Familiar, Rapid Hybridization, and a Master of Waves.
And I like the use of Cyclonic Rift here. Jack with no action left over, just needs to keep drawing cards.
I'm a fan of this use as well. As you see the split, 2 versus 1, Master on its own.
And now the Master is a lot less attractive here since Jack knows that Mike now has a Detention Sphere in hand. But taking Master and casting it basically forces Mike to use a Detention Sphere on it unless he has a Supreme Verdict. And that allows Jace and Tidebinder Mage to keep doing their thing.
So Tidebinder's going to come across. Going to put Williams down to 11. Fogle's going to play that island. He's going to cast that Master Way. He's leaving with just an island in hand. Devotion will be 5. So 5 elementals are going to come into play, and that's going to be it for Fogle's turn. We'll be moving back Williams' way momentarily.
And Williams' hand is really stacked. I mean, he has a Revelation, a Detention Sphere, a Counterspell. And now he's just drawn Supreme Verdict.
Yeah.
I was going to say, the last thing he just needs to do is make sure he doesn't fall too far behind, and now Detention Sphere, or sorry, Supreme Verdict rather, make sure that that's not going to be an issue.
And Sphere will have the ability maybe to clean up this Jace, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Fogle just cash in the Jace here, since he knows there's a Sphere over there on the other side of the table. At the same time, he did just draw a Thassa, so this kind of makes things a little bit interesting. He can put a little pressure on the Detention Sphere to figure out, you know, what card do you want to take away if you're Williams, as Thassa is going to hit the hit play, excuse me.
Yeah. He's happy with him sphering one or the other now at this point.
I think we're almost certainly going to see Sphere cast, and it's going to take down the Jace. No land there from Williams, so Fogle's going to take a draw. He'll scry first, of course. Put that card right to the bottom immediately. It looks like he didn't draw much help. I think he just drew another copy of Thassa.
Yeah. And this is really the turn that Mike needed here, is a one-turn reprieve where he can now get Jay start making some land drops and taking over the game from here. We also might see a rep for 3 here. I wouldn't be surprised if he just sat on his Counterspell and attempted to just rep for 3 and use the Jaces as additional sources of card advantage.
Yeah, and I love that turn here. Just leaving all the mana open. You have access to Revelation or Counterspell, and this spell is actually worth countering. So Dissolve will take care of the Bident here. So neither Bident's going to resolve for Fogle. It looks like Williams is going to keep the top card. Wouldn't be surprised if it's just a land to put into play. Yep. Put a land directly into play so you can Revelate for even a larger amount now. And now Fogle's outs are being cut dramatically as far as relevant cards are concerned.
When you see Mike scry immediately keep and then put an untapped land into play, you know it means a Revelation is coming.
Here's a Master of Waves. Devotion's going to be for 2, which means 2 elementals are going to come into play. So Thassa's got a long way until it's actually going to be live, and chances of that, you know, Master being relevant are pretty low here, as Williams is going to Revelation for 4. So 4 life, and more importantly, 4 cards coming, of them Supreme Verdict, along with another Revelation, an Azorius Guildgate, and an Island. And now a draw will add another copy of Azorius Guildgate. But Williams' hand is just loaded up now.
Yeah, I mean, another Supreme Verdict and another Revelation. Not much more you could ask for here.
It's good, clean living.
Yeah. Honest.
And there are really some games here. Supreme Verdict's going to take care of the Master and its friends. That blue-white really just does look dominating. And this feels like one of them here.
Yeah, I mean, when the mono blue deck doesn't have an early Thassa, it's just basically an inefficient beatdown deck in the matchup. The blue-white deck with Last Breath and Detention Sphere, Supreme Verdict has a lot of tools to keep its head above water. You're really relying on Thassa to both be able to keep you up card quality-wise and to also threaten enough damage, which Thassa can do.
Now here's a Jace. Now if this turns over, yeah, like a card like a Tidebonder Major or a Frostburn Weird, or even a Night Veil Spectre can actually turn on Thassa, and we can start getting back to dealing some damage here. And you saw Williams take up his Jace in anticipation of maybe Thassa going live. So Thassa's not actually going to be able to kill Williams' Jace. It'll just be able to work it down.
Some pretty savvy play there from Mike.
It would have been very easy from just minus it.
Yes.
Get some more cards. Just keep going that route. That's a Frostborn right here from Fogle. Attack the Jace. Trigger. Going to go down to 1. Williams going to untap all 8 of those lands. Take a draw here. See Island off the top. 2 Guild Gates in hand to go along with that Island. Another Jace and a big Revelation if he wants to. Jace will tick up. Williams will pass the turn back. So Fogle's going to scry to begin things here. Going to put that top card to the bottom. Take a draw. Domestication. One of the poorer draws, actually, in Jack's deck.
Not an ideal one.
Yeah. And it feels like blue-white is just a really tough matchup game 1. I think things will change after sideboard, and Fogle has access to some counter magic and some other toys that we'll get to when we get there. But game 1 seems like it's a very difficult game for mono blue here.
Yeah, it's just very hard. The blue-white deck, the mono-blue deck, rather, is just not that well equipped to beat Supreme Verdict in the first game. With Thassa, it can, but if it has to play something resembling normal Magic, where it just has its curve of creatures, It's really hard to beat the removal and the Wraths.
You see Fogle's going to go after Jason. Mike says, that's fine. I don't have a way to defend that, but I do have a way to draw a whole boatload of cards. And you have to remember one thing, too. Fogle has been on the other side of this before. He's the kind of player who I kind of identify with blue-white, with Esper, who seem to have a lot of success with those decks. So he knows what it's like to be on the other side of a revelation.
And now not even Elspeth does very much for Mike, as Thassa's on and can make things unblockable. So he has to really find another, specifically Supreme Verdict, to get out of this bind.
I think what we might see here, I think what Fogle's considering is casting Domestication on his own creature to make sure that the devotion count is actually okay at all times. I'm not sure, because Domestication is obviously not going to have very many targets against Williams' deck. I'm actually not sure if it has any at all outside of maybe an Elspeth token. Let's see, Williams is going to Revelate for 6 here, go up to 21. Last Breath, the card drawn for his turn, so 7 brand new cards for the blue-white control player. Azorius Charm among them.
Yeah, and this is Mike is drawing enough tools to allow him to break up a Thassa devotion if Jack attacks with too many things inside of combat. I don't think he found the Supreme Verdict, but he did find an Azorius Charm and a Last Breath.
You see him organizing all of those lands. He's got plenty of them out there. See how he wants to, go about this turn, but this will also lead up to the subsequent turns as well, of how this game is going to play out.
Thassa's just so good. I mean, by all accounts, Mike should have wrapped this game up a while ago, but the mixture of card selection and the pressure that it's dealing and turning off certain things like Elspeth, I mean, it is doing a lot in this game.
The juice is worth the squeeze with that card.
Oh, yeah.
This is it's the best god by a lot, and it sure is good. You see, Elspeth's going to come in, it's going to make 3 soldiers, but that might not end up mattering that much right now.
I mean, Mike's got a little bit of life to work with here, but I'm a little surprised to see this order of events, given that, Jack's going to be able to potentially play more cards to keep Thassa up, and the removal spells might not be able to turn off Thassa in combat.
Top card here from Fogle. He's going to scry, consult his hand before doing so. Now, don't forget, Williams does have access right now to Azorius Charm and Last Breath with his mana. It's masked pretty well there with the Temple of Silence, and also the fact that he can activate Mutavault, but he can cast both of those cards, and you saw him rearrange his mana so that he can do that pretty efficiently. Mutavault the draw here from Fogle.
But Jack does actually need to add his devotion count here to be able to survive the 2 removal spells in combat. Or there's the potential that Mike is setting up Azorius Charm on Thassa with the intent of dissolving it on the way back.
Yeah, that's what I think he's going to do. I think it's if Thassa comes into the red zone, that's almost certainly going top of his deck.
But with Jason play, Jack can simply draw it and recast it that turn. So
it looks like some things are being made unblockable here. We're getting in the red zone. I think Jack is of the opinion right now, he's just like, I don't really have much of a choice. I can't just sit here and mess around after you've drawn all those cards. I have to try to, put some pressure on you. Maybe you brick the bunch, who knows, but I have to do something here. So there's Azorius Charm.
And now, since Jack has played a land before combat, Mike knows that he can't chase, reflip it, and recast it this turn.
Actually, a pretty big deal there. You see Frostmourne, we're going to activate. Maybe. Okay. Try to activate again. Response to that. Last Breath it. So that's going to go away. And so now Time Iron Mage is going to make it so that goes down. Fogle's going to up his Jace so that Elspeth can't kill it. And an exchange of resources there by Williams and Fogle. It looks like Williams comes out ahead.
Oh, for sure. And now he's got all of his mana on tap. That was the last turn that he really needed to sweat. Yep. Now things get very easy.
The Attention Sphere was a really nice draw for him, too. So he can take care of Jace if he wants to do that, or he can save it for Thassa. He is going to take care of Jace. Really everything going the blue-white control player's way here. Looks like he's maybe going to deploy a Jace of his own. Might get him a little more aggressive here, too. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, he just wants to make sure that he has enough mana left over to dissolve something.
And you see a Jace, and Fogle says, that's good enough for me. So Jack Fogle's going to concede. Mike Williams at 5-0 is going to win game number 1 here with Blue Eye Control. Looked pretty confident there.
Yes,
like
that was
looked know what he was doing.
Nice and easy. No contest on that one.
Now, admittedly, things for Blue Eye Control are pretty good game number 1. So I'm not too surprised to see Williams take a game number 1 over Fogle, but things are going to get difficult after the sideboard. And we're going to start on Jack's side because he's going to be on the play. He's got access to a Curse of the Swine, which is not particularly for this matchup, of course. Now, Jace Memory Adept, and a Jace Architect of Thought, those are going to join us. 2 Domestications, obviously going to be hiding out in the sideboard, but Dispel and Negate, those are probably going to join us. Rapid Hybridization will stay in the sideboard. 2 Dissolves and a Biden of Thassa will come in, and then 4 copies of Gainsay. This is the bigger question of do you want these, because they will counter a Revelation, they will counter a Detention Sphere, but there are some things that it will not counter. Of course, Verdict is uncounterable. Elspeth is another one. So do you want 4 copies of Gainsay when you have other counter magic already coming in?
I want at least a few, but probably not all 4.
Okay.
On the other side, Mike actually has something of a conversion in his sideboard. We've seen some of this occur with blue-white lists in the past, where he has Archangel of Thune alongside Soldier of Pantheon, 3 Gainsays, 3 Dark Betrayals, 1 Opportunity. I'm really interested to see if he wants to bring in Archangel. If you're working on the assumption that the blue deck is likely just to cut all of their creature-containing stuff, their domestications and their rapid hybridizations, an Archangel can go unchecked. It can be gainsayed, of course, and by itself can kind of just win the race on its own. The blue deck sides into so much grindy, card advantage stuff between Biden and Jace, additional counter spells. You can't always hold them all forever in the post-board games. Game 1 you kind of can because they have enough dead draws and they're really susceptible to Supreme Verdict. That's less the case in the post-board games. So I'm curious to see if Mike actually wants to go to Archangel and just try to win that way.
Archangel is a card that we have not really seen much of during its life. It reminds me a lot of Thunderwall Hellkite, actually, where we didn't see Thunderwall Hellkite at the beginning, and then it really picked up at the back end a lot thanks to Brian Kibler and just a lot of people just incorporating that into red decks and it being so very difficult for people to be able to beat, where it really had a stranglehold on the standard format. And I don't know if Archangel is going to go through the same path, but we all know how powerful of a card that is, especially the first time when we read and saw it, and the fact that it can combo with a lot of different things, and it's just kind of an unbeatable threat on its own, but it hasn't really seen play.
Correct. And I think, honestly, a bit underplayed. I think it's not as powerful as Thundermaw Hellkite, and Thundermaw Hellkite is also the best possible thing to be capping out a beatdown deck's curve, whereas Archangel isn't the same kind of card. You need to be either building around it or playing against an opponent who's especially susceptible to it. So it's harder to include in decks because it's more situational, but certainly there's a class of decks out there that really struggle to beat it. Starting to take off a little bit in Modern, too. Starting to show up a little bit in Birthing Pod.
Yeah, those
lists.
pod decks, they can infinite combo off of that card a little bit. They only have to play 1, which is actually pretty nice. I'm not sure if, we see versions playing more of them or not, but it does allow for a pretty cool combo, so.
Yeah, I played a match against Jarvis Yu, I believe, a couple months ago where they got those 2 cards in play through pod, and then I was like, oh, this is really bad for me trying to slog through these 2. And then he gained 40 life or whatever, and I was like, oh, never mind, I'm just dead, thank God. I don't have to actually try to beat these things, honestly.
How does this work? Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Oh, I'm just dead. All right, great.
Okay, got it. What were you playing at the time?
I think I probably had a Deathrite Shaman and a Grim Lavamancer in play.
Oh boy, that is quite powerful.
It was for the first couple turns.
Yeah, it sounds like it was probably a lot of fun.
For the first couple turns. Again, same answer.
Now, was it the Archangel that you were losing to, or was it perhaps the card Birthing Pod?
I was losing to the Spike Feeders.
Oh, okay.
I just couldn't beat those. I mean, the pod was bad, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't. Just Sphinxes and feeders, man.
Hey, well, I mean, we don't know how much longer we're going to see Birthing Pod. That ban restricted announcement's coming soon.
We're getting close. Yeah. Who knows?
I love a Birthing Pod more than most, but that thing's a little powerful. It might be time for that to maybe leave the format of Modern. Hard to say. Both the pod decks are really good, and they do keep winning. Well, Malira Pod does keep just winning Grand Prix after Grand Prix.
I know Reed Duke wrote an article earlier this week advocating for the same thing.
Yeah.
Among other changes to the ban list.
Yeah, a couple unbannings as well. On the premium side of Star City, if you guys haven't checked it out, It was a good one, unsurprisingly,
Yeah.
from the Duke. I think, you know what? I'm going to make my prediction right now. I know last week I didn't make one. I was kind of a fence sitter. Noctil's coming back. Nicodle, excuse me. Noctil? What's wrong with me? Nicodle's coming back.
Is it fine for him to be finally released from his jail sentence for a crime that remains unclear?
Yes. It's time to let the one man of 3/3 let it come back. It's fine. It's no worse than Birthing Pod being around and just doing whatever it wants to. We need a good aggro deck. I don't think we have like a really good aggro deck in Modern, right?
Well, I think Affinity is quite good.
Okay, I take that back.
But the point is is it actually suppressing other beatdown decks from arriving? I think it's hard to confidently argue that that's the case. And if the argument for keeping it banned rests solely on that, then I think we're short.
Yeah, give me a Zoo deck. I kind of like when Zoo's in the format. It's a good deck. It's hard to beat. See, Jack's gonna take a mulligan here. Looks like Mike is happy enough with his hand. It's a good deck. It's kind of hard to beat, but it's also beatable. You know, it's just a good deck. I like Zoo is just a good card deck. You can do a lot of different things with how many colors you want to play. A lot of innovations to be had. Give him a good one drop.
Also, it's just, it's also just nuts and bolts magic. I mean, the Modern lists we're seeing are regularly killing people on the 4th turn of the game, or picking up and tutoring through their deck multiple times, or doing both things. And I think it's nice to have some powerful decks in the format that are just guys and some kill spells, There has to be room for that kind of stuff, too.
Yeah, just get them dead.
It feels like Modern's been pretty far away from that. Even the Affinity list, it kills more like a combo deck than a beatdown deck.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of setup, and then either Arcbound Ravager or Cranial Plating are the cards that are actually doing the deed.
Yeah. I'd be much happier losing to a Wild Nicodle than, Inkmoth Nexus carrying a Cranial Plating.
Right.
So, something about that just feels way worse.
Well, because if you kill the thing with the plating on it, they just have another thing. Whereas when you kill the Noctil,
It's dead forever.
It's just dead.
Yeah.
It's dead in their graveyard.
Cloudfin Raptor to start the show here for Fogle. Again, he's down a game right now. Hollowed Fountain there from Williams. We'll pass it back to Jack, see if he can evolve the Raptor on turn number 2. He does have an island in his hand to play. Looks like he's off to a little bit of a slower start this game. He's just going to play Mutavault and pass the turn back. So that means if he does draw a Nightveil Spectre, he will not be able to play it on this particular go-around. But again, we don't know if that's a card that he left in his deck. Williams is going to play a Mutavault of his own.
And Mike kept a 2-lander on the draw here, and his first 2 draw steps have been land, so his hand is now shaping up really nicely.
Attack here for 2, opening himself up to a Last Breath. Yikes. That's going to happen. It's a little bit risky.
Well, Jack's hand's pretty bad, so you got to take some risks.
There's a Temple of Silence, Detention Sphere. That's worth keeping on top. But he's going to put it on the bottom. Wow, looked like he wanted to keep it on top, decides not to. We'll see if that comes back to bite him.
With his Syncopate and all the rats in his hand, I think he just wants lands and Revelations.
Fogle just passes back with Dissolve mana up, playing a little bit of a draw-go game. This might actually favor Williams, though, this kind of game.
It's hard to imagine it not favoring him.
Here's a Frostburn Weird. And the way that Jack is playing the game now, you see a Gainsay, it really, if you're Williams, you probably pick up on the fact that, okay, he's got counter magic in his hand. You can probably see right through this a little bit here. Here's a Temple of Silence. Going to keep the top card on top. Fogle going to take a draw here. You see an island to go along with Gainsay. He's got the Dissolve. I think he has another counterspell over there, too. Williams going to take a draw. Play an island. There's an Archangel of Thune.
Yep.
I think that gets countered here, though.
I had to assume this is worth a counterspell.
Yeah. So I'm going to counter that. Hopefully you don't have a Dispel, which you don't.
And a few turns ago, I was really interested to see Mike use a Gainsay there instead of just allowing that to enter play and using one of his 3 Supreme Verdicts. As now he's pretty exposed to Jace or Thassa or a couple other cards that really only Gainsay can answer.
This game is really interesting to me, too. There's a revelation because it looks like this is the kind of game that Jack wants to be playing. Like the way that he's sideboarded and the hand that he's kept, it's very counterspell heavy. And he's just like, I'm more than comfortable just sitting here just doing nothing and counting your spells.
And this is also the type of game where if Jack is able to find a Jace, then that can squeeze a lot of value here.
Yeah, we got a much different game then. Here comes a Mutavault. So now Williams is going to get a little bit more aggressive.
On to plan B.
Yeah.
Just 11 more of those.
There's an island. Gonna play that and pass the turn back. So Williams will take a draw. It's an Elspeth. I think that's actually in the clear to resolve, which is insane, because I don't think that Williams is actually going to pull the trigger on casting this, but he is. Wow. I can't believe he's just more than willing just to pull the trigger on this when Fogle hasn't been doing anything. You see Fogle's hand right now. He's got double Gainsay, a Dispel, and a Cyclonic Rift, and just no fear. Just go for it.
You know, you've already gotten through one Dissolve. How many do you think are in the deck? The rest of the counters this deck has are not necessarily going to tag an Elspeth, even if he does have them.
Well, that was a timely draw by Fogle. He does draw a Jace, which can actually play a role in this matchup because now he can actually, up the Jace to contain the Elspeth tokens. He can't really do very much about the Elspeth ultimate. I think that's the bigger problem.
You can try to get the Cyclonic Rift, but it's very tough to set up with the Syncopate in Mike's hand.
So that's going to be for up to 5. So the Elspeth tokens aren't going to do very much. There's a Mutavault off the top there for Williams. Put that into play.
He can use his Mutavault potentially to start taxing the Jace.
Looks like that's what he's going to do. Jace is going to go down to 4. Elspeth's going to put 3 more soldier tokens into play past the turn back. Fogle going to untap. He's going to take a draw. Tidebinder mage to draw. So now the Cloud from Retro is actually going to get to do something.
Finally.
Yeah.
All grown up.
It's been there since turn 1. Just waiting to have some fun.
You see there an attack on the Elspeth, and Mike uses Last Breath. I would suspect his plan this game is to just try to go ultimate with Elspeth.
Yeah, I think so too.
And Detention Sphere, an excellent draw here.
Yep. Yeah, we'll buy a counterspell, of course. You see the game say that Fogle's been holding on to a very, very long time. Might have a little war over this with a Syncopate. See if Fogle probably burns the Dispel on this. Yeah. So a little counter war over the Detention Sphere goes in Fogle's favor.
And actually, Jack is now at a point where he's setting up being able to overload Cyclonic Overload and at least not have to face down a Jace ultimate just yet. Still assembling a plan long term is a little challenging.
Yeah, this is actually kind of interesting, right? Because we might see in this situation where Williams is just like, all right, cash in my Elspeth, yeah, and then we can see an overload Cyclonic Rift. Yep, fire up these Mutavaults. Everybody into the club. And yep, there's an overloaded Rift. It says pick up all your tokens. So your Elspeth, in reality, didn't really do very much. Now, the Mutavaults should stay in play.
Yeah, they're still lands.
Yep, they're still lands. So those aren't going to go away. But they're only going to deal 1 point of damage each because of the Jace.
But Jack is now, he's got a little bit of breathing room here. The Elspeth is permanently dealt with. And he's threatening to actually go ultimate with Jace himself.
Yeah. There's a Frostburn weird. Not going to be too great. Question now is, does he want to? Yeah, I had a feeling he might want to mine his Jace here. Try to maybe find a Bident or something that does anything. There's another copy of Jace. Not the best, but he is going to take the Jace to his hand. Williams' hand right now, he's got those 2 copies of Supreme Verdict. Fogle's going to get in here with the Tidebinder Mage. Probably going to play the Frostburn weird, which is going to buy out one of the Verdicts, I think. I believe, depending on what Williams draws, his turn's probably going to be, Verdict and fire up the Mutavaults and kill the Jace.
Yeah, that seems like the best place to go.
And so that's what's going to happen. Fire up these Mutavaults, finish off your Jace.
Oh, he's I don't know how Jace would.
Yeah, I don't know how it would go down to 1.
Oh, that's still the Elspeth. Right.
Right, the Elspeth emblem.
No emblem in play.
Yeah. Yeah, so Jace actually dies because it goes, every creature gets +2/+2 and flying. So that's what ends up happening there. So now here's a Jace. This is going to get minus. Yeah, Fogle needs some action right now because those Mutavaults are way more threatening than you and I thought. You see 2 copies of Thassa and a Mutavault.
We got so hung up on the Elspeth getting basically permanently killed.
Yeah, there's no emblem out there, but in reality there is, and those are 4/4 Mutavaults instead of 2/2s. And those are much worse. And we're going to get an emblem out here on the screen for you guys so you don't forget about it like we just did. You see the split here of Thassa Thassa versus Mutavault.
Mike saying, take all the Thasses you want.
Yeah.
Jack can only really get out of this if he's able to get enough mana to play multiple stuff in a turn. And the second Thassa is not worth that much anyway, so
Yeah.
this is essentially Thassa versus Mutavault.
I think you have to take Thassa in this situation. Even though, this is one of the times where Thassa is just not that great. Williams going to quickly untap. He'll take a draws a Jace of his own to go along with the gainsay. And there's still a Supreme Verdict hiding out over there. Long way to go here if you're Jack Fogle.
Yeah.
2 verdicts, actually.
And the only way he's going to be able to turn on Devotion is by playing into Supreme Verdict. There's really no other way for him to assemble it at this point.
Oh, Mutavault, take care of that. Now here's a couple of mana here from Williams. He's going to go with the Jace here. And there is your Elspeth emblem. So now we know that all the creatures have +2 and +2. And flying here from Mike Williams. He's going to take his Jace down. You see a couple lands and an Archangel of Thune. Split it creature versus. Archangel going to go to the grip. Creatures are going to go to the, lands are going to go to the bottom.
And I really like the Archangel playing in this matchup.
I do too. This one's very difficult for Mono Blue to beat.
And Jack is really sided into a ton of counter spells.
They're siding into a different deck.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how well you can play this role against this deck of being this, kind of counter slivers-esque deck. And the reason I say that is because, a counter slivers deck I think worked in the past, the fact that you could counter the removal, but a counter slivers deck where the Wrath is uncounterable seems like it would be very difficult to make it work.
Yeah, it seems really challenging to get enough pressure into play and not lose to that card unless you have a lot of card advantage going on.
So you see Fogle just passes the turn back to Williams. He's firing up a Mutavault. Looks like that's going to get in the red zone. It's going to be an attack for 4. So Williams got a really nice clock going on here. Here's 5 mana. There is your Archangel, looks like. Azorius Guildgate going to come into play tap. Jace going to tick up. Williams more than happy to pass the turn back. There you do see the Archangel of Thune. 3/4 flyer for 5 with lifelink. And when you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. It'll have its day in the sun. I can promise you that.
Wouldn't surprise me if it was played alongside the new Mythic. It's pretty good with that 3/4 in a variety of ways.
Yeah, that's true.
2 defensive creatures, really good at, triggering Archangel with tokens in play is really powerful.
Little offense, defense.
Yeah.
Those
part of the same stripe.
Yeah. And there's a Biden. You're a little late to the party. Williams says that's fine. Pass the turn back. There's a Plains. Jace is going to tick down. You see another Archangel adjacent attention sphere. Best of luck splitting those.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at a lethal attack right now anyway, but this is just to make sure.
Yeah, Mutavaults are both 4s. There's 2 out there, so that's 8, and then 5 from the Angel, all thanks to this Elspeth emblem, which at the time we didn't think was going to be that big of a deal because Cyclonic Rift's going to take care of all the tokens. But oh, how wrong we were.
Yeah. And that's just a testament to the power of Mutavault, too. It's costing Mike very little put into this deck, and it's giving him just a 1 extra angle of attack.
So Mike will take a couple cards here from the Jace, fire up a Mutavault. You see him searching through his lands here. Looks like he's going to fire up another Mutavault. And again, as you mentioned, this is a lethal attack. And this is an extension of the hand. Mike Williams, he's going to move on to 6-0, defeating the 27th ranked player, Jack Fogle. Blue-white control, a deck that we have not seen a ton of recently, especially in the top 8 of these tournaments.
Yeah.
Moving on to 6-0 here in our 10-round standard open.